Now I will explain to you the defense mechanisms, which are part of Freud's psychodynamic theory. And defense mechanisms are ways of coping with difficult feelings or your mind's way of dealing with stress. And everybody uses defense mechanisms at one point or another. And sometimes we use more than one at a time. So now on the next slides, I will give you the definition of each defense mechanism as well as an example. Let's start with repression. Repression is defined as the pushing down of difficult memories or emotions such as anger or sadness to the unconscious. So, for example, a person abused as a child has no recollection of the abuse. So we might say, oh, that person appears to have repressed the difficult memories of the child abuse. Another defense mechanism is called regression. And this is when a person's behavior goes backwards in time to an earlier stage of development. So, for an example, a toddler who can walk by himself asks his parents to push him in a stroller and wants to be carried everywhere. So, the child in this example has reverted back to an earlier stage of development. So, we might say that, oh, this child appears to have regressed. Displacement. This is a very common defense mechanism. This is misdirecting anger onto the wrong target. So, for example, a parent who had a bad day at work comes home and yells at her kids for no reason. So, we could say that she has displaced her anger onto her children. Denial. This, of all the defense mechanisms, this is probably the most common one. And it's very simple. It's just refusal to face reality. So, for example, a person who receives a cancer diagnosis ignores it and does not inform his loved ones or seek medical treatment. The truth is that people engage in denial on really big, important matters. And then sometimes people engage in denial on smaller, more trivial matters or anything in between. So it's just very common that people engage in denial. Projection is when a person accuses others of negative behaviors that they themselves engage in. So, for example, a bully complains that he is getting picked on. He himself picks on other people and bullies others, and yet now he's complaining that he's getting bullied. So we might say that he appears to be projecting about the bullying. Sublimation is channeling difficult emotions such as sadness or anger into art, sports, work, or another creative outlet. So, for example, Vincent van Gogh struggled with depression and he transformed his sadness into beautiful paintings. So, we might say that Van Gogh sublimated his depression into his masterpieces, into his beautiful artwork. Reaction formation is when a repressed wish or feeling is expressed in a contrasting form. So, for example, a person who dislikes their coworker acts in an overly friendly manner towards them. So, they act in the opposite way of their true, genuine feelings, and that's called reaction formation. Identification is when a person adopts the mannerisms or appearance of another person who they perceive to be better equipped to cope with stress. So, for example, a nervous student about to take the SAT begins tapping her pencil exactly like her friend that's a straight A student always does. So, the student is identifying with her friend that she knows is a very successful student by tapping her pencil just like her friend does. So that's called identification. Rationalization is using twisted logic to justify unhealthy behavior that doesn't serve you. So, for example, when almost the entire class fails an exam, the teacher blames her students when actually she did a poor job of teaching the lesson, yet she tries to rationalize it. A Freudian slip. Uh, Freud believed that when you make a mistake in speech, it provides a glimpse of material that's hidden in the unconscious. So we all make mistakes when we speak. And so Freud thought that it's more than just a mistake, that there's a deeper hidden meaning to these mistakes in speech, and he called them Freudian slips. So for example, here's kind of a humorous one. Your biology teacher misspeaks and accidentally says orgasm instead of organism. So Freud might say, oh, that's an embarrassing Freudian slip, and what's really on that teacher's mind? Oh, maybe they're thinking about sex. Sex is on their mind. So that's the way Freudian slips work. You might wonder if Freudian slips occur via the written word. And yes, they do. And those are called Freudian slips of the pen. So they're mistakes in writing or typing that reveal a glimpse of what's held in the unconscious. So for example, these are, true examples. Trump tweets that his presidency is consensual when he meant to write consequential, okay? So because he's been accused of a lot of sexual assaults, it was an interesting Freudian slip of the pen, because he's thinking about, oh, is sex, consensual or not? So that was an interesting Freudian slip of the pen that Trump tweeted. Or another one, Trump tweets that China's behavior is unprecedented instead of unprecedented. So unprecedented is not an actual word, and what he meant to write was unprecedented. But this kind of reminds you of the word unpresidential. So maybe in Trump's unconscious, he was thinking about how some people have accused him of being unpresidential. So nonetheless, another example of a Freudian slip of the pen. And here's one last example. Kanye West tweets that he has meetings all day in Silicon Valley instead of Silicon Valley. So silicone is a common material used in breast implants. So again, a funny Freudian slip of the pen, because people wondered, hey, what's Kanye thinking about here, writing silicone instead of silicon? So there are so many more examples for each one of these defense mechanisms, but I'm just giving you one to illustrate, and hopefully you get the idea.